It's your girl, your friendly neighborhood otaku, Scarlett Uzumaki, back with another video. As you can tell by the hat, you know what we are going to be talking about today, and that is One Piece, the live action series airing on Netflix right now. So sit back, get yourself a beverage, I have mine in my gummy mug, and let's enjoy the little yap session as I gush over how I felt about season 2 of the most anticipated, I can't even speak, the most anticipated live action adaptation to date. First things first, besties, I just want to welcome you all back to the Bestie Verse because I very much enjoy you tuning in and watching me yap. So let me just give you a little head pat. Live action One Piece. This series has been praised as one of the best anime adaptations Netflix has ever done. I think the reason why this series has done so well on Netflix is because that the creator of the actual anime and manga itself was heavily involved in a lot of the most important decisions in terms of making this show. There was another live action adaptation, The Last Airbender, that came out a couple of years ago as well, and unfortunately the creators of that walked away from the show as they did disclose that Netflix wanted to make changes that they weren't happy with and wasn't given the creative freedom, and due to this the show had a very different tone to The Last Airbender TV show. In the spirit of One Piece, one thing that a lot of fans did enjoy about the first season was that it was not afraid to bring the tone from the anime into live action. And one thing about One Piece, especially with the first few seasons, or I guess you could say season 1 as technically it's only had one season. One thing you can say about One Piece is that the earlier episodes of One Piece itself, they're very cartoony, they're very goofy, very comedic, but they're also very dramatic. And one thing that everybody did praise about the live action was that they captured this tone very well, and the actors did a very good job in portraying these almost cartoonish elements onto the live action. Let's talk about the casting. I think the cast did an absolutely amazing job. As I mentioned before in all of my previous videos talking about live action One Piece, you can tell that the cast really does enjoy One Piece as a media. They are all massive nerds about it, which is what I think does make a show. Similar to how Henry Cavill was very much a fan of The Witcher, so he really put his all into the role. He was giving ideas on how to better the storyline because he knew this character inside out. And I think the same can be said for the actors for the Straw Hats. They know their characters inside out because they are fans of the show, so they are able to add another essence, another je ne sais quoi, as I should say, to ensure that they are portraying the Straw Hats to their best ability. And you can tell it shows. One person who I think was a standout this season was Jacob Romero, the actor for Usopp, because in the anime Usopp kind of fades to the background for me because the Straw Hats have so many big players. You've got the Monster Trio, you have the Mature Trio, and finally you have the Coward Trio, and because of this, so many big personalities, big characters, people who are literally gods on this pirate ship, people like Usopp kind of fade to the background unless you have an episode dedicated to them. And one thing that I like about season 2 of this live action is that Jacob Romero really shined. His comedic timing is absolutely amazing. His facial expressions, the way he moves his face to mimic Usopp's expressions to a T, is absolutely beautiful. Even though he doesn't have the long nose Usopp has, you can tell that he is Usopp. Another thing that I didn't know, because I'm just a little bit dizzy, I didn't know that the Japanese voice actors for the One Piece anime voiced the dub for the live action. I was a little bit obsessed with the live action, so I actually went back to watch it in Japanese after watching it in English, and I was so confused. I was just like, I'm hearing Luffy. That sounds like Nami. And then I had to Google it, and that's when I realised, oh, so the actual Japanese voice actors are involved in dubbing over for the Japanese translation, which is what I think is so cool that they are still involved in it, because it kind of makes it feel like you're watching the anime all over again. So if you are somebody who loves One Piece as much as I do, I would highly suggest going back and watching the live action with Japanese and English subtitles, because it kind of feels like you're watching the anime all over again. I just talk about some of the pacing elements. So one thing that I did see people complaining about online was that they kind of moved things around. They kind of made people appear earlier. They made people pop up where they weren't mentioned originally in the anime. And one thing that I do have to say about this is that when anyone creates like a long form like series, you don't always know how it's going to end. You don't always know how it's going to work out, and that can be said. Like even another anime that I watched called Fairy Tail, the creator for that, he admitted that after one of the most major arcs of the series, which happened way back when, he thought the series was going to end, but then his editors were like, what are you going to do now? You're going to carry on? So then he just carried on without knowing how the series would end. I think the same could be said for One Piece. I don't think Eiichiro Oda knew where the series was going when he started it all the way back in 1998. So when he has certain characters like Bartolomeo pop up later on and say, I was there in Logtown, even though in the anime he didn't actually appear in Logtown. And I think it was good for live action to kind of introduce Bartolomeo a lot earlier than the anime did, as it allowed the viewer to kind of see where this admiration for Luffy and the Straw Hat started, because in the anime he kind of pops out of nowhere and was like, hey, I saw you, and Luffy's like, huh? Of course, how can I talk about One Piece live action and not mention Drum Island arc? It met all my expectations. Chopper was cute and fluffy. Dr. Rean was amazing. And when Chopper first saw Nami, they recreated the scene that I thought was so adorable when I first watched it all those years ago. And one thing that they added in, which wasn't in the anime that I really loved, was when Chopper was crying and then Zoro picks him up and puts him on his shoulders. That was so cute, that was so sweet. I love that, because one thing that the fans all love is the relationship that Chopper has with all the Straw Hats. And one relationship that I really love is just how close he is with Zoro and also Robin. But also Zoro is kind of like a big brother or a dad to him, which I find so adorable, and I love that they included that in the live action. I hope they include more. So all in all, besties, I actually really enjoyed the One Piece live action. I thought it really captured that goofiness, it captured the dramatic scenes, the fight scenes were amazing, and you can tell all the actors really enjoyed being part of such a big production, and they enjoyed doing what they do, which I thought was, sorry, there's a bee out there, I keep looking at it, which I thought was absolutely amazing to see, because it's one thing I love is when actors take part in projects that they really believe in and really love. I don't like it when actors kind of hate on series. It's like you're just there for a check and nothing else. It's kind of like when all the actors who were in Twilight keep shitting on Twilight because they thought it was funny and cool to do so, but yet so many fans did love Twilight, even though it is problematic. This is a project that you decided to take part in. If you didn't like it, why did you do it? I know a job is a job in the end of the day, but if you're doing a job that means you can do what you love, why just take part in a project that you don't believe in just so you can shit on it and disrespect a lot of people who love this media? So if there was somebody in One Piece who hated it, took part in it and was shitting on One Piece every chance they got, that would make me really upset, because I love One Piece and so many people around the world also love One Piece, and it does warm my heart to see that every single actor, even the background actors, the stunt actors, people who worked on the sets, they all love being part of this production, and I love to see where this goes. Alright, besties, this video is going to be way too long, so I'm going to end it here. That's all I have time for today, and I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you have seen season 2 of One Piece, and if so, what did you enjoy most about the show? Alright, besties, ta-ta for now, and tune in next time for something. I don't know what, but something is happening. Alright, besties, bye-bye. Bye! I gotta go work now.